It's time for the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games at Southern Utah University in Cedar City. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of a Utah sports tradition at utahsummergames.org. Participate in over 50 sports around the state. Then plan to join the opening ceremonies Friday, June 5th, presented by State Bank of Southern Utah. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games.
Do you love the Tabernacle Choir? This year, the choir's music is everywhere you are. Listen to your favorite choir songs and music and the spoken word anytime you want on Alexa by simply enabling the skill.
Alexa, play music in the spoken word.
Now playing music in the spoken word.
You can also download the Tabernacle Choir app, subscribe to the choir on YouTube, listen on Spotify, and have access to all their wonderful music. Happy listening.
You're locked on to Scotty G and the coach, Tim LaCombe.
Now I know y'all are tripping.
Presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
97.5, the KSL Sports Zone, just past 11 o'clock. It's that time of day, by the way. Not what you think, by the way. That's an energy drink, by the way. Just wanted to.
I mean, some call it that.
I want to look. We're all about getting that sponsorship dollars. My friends at Rockstar, hey, hop on board. I am ready and willing to endorse these drinks because I go through a couple of them every day. Like I was interviewing the athletic director at Utah State, Cameron Walker, and we were doing a video thing, and before we started, and I was knocking one back. He's like, "Hey, what number is that today?" I was like, let's not get caught up in the semantics. Yeah. It's not important. All right, let's welcome him in. Jay Stevens, one of our favorites, host of the Utah Puck Report on KSLSports.com. Kind enough to join us. Jay, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Doing well. If you, I guess we're at those different levels of grief. Are you now in the acceptance stage? Like, where are you right now?
I think I'm at the acceptance stage. I'm getting excited about next year and looking at all the possibilities that the Utah Mammoth have of adding, subtracting from the roster, and just it took a minute though. It took a minute for me to get here.
Jay, what do you feel like addressing, going forward, and a lot of optimism in the locker room clean out and after the season interviews, guys? Many guys talked about, this being hopefully a launching pad for greater things. What needs to happen? What are some things that the Mammoth can address and need to, and you think perhaps will address this offseason to make that more of a reality?
Yeah, there's a few things. One of the things they need to address is just, in my opinion, is how they addressed goaltending all year. I think Veggie played too many games. I actually asked Veggie about it too, and he's like, I don't think about how many games I'm going to play. I get ready for every game. But I think they needed to manage him a little bit better and give him some more rest. I don't think the Vanacek was the problem either. I think they just let him play games that they thought they would lose, and he didn't play as many games as he wanted to, and Veggie played a ton. So that'd be the first place I start, is rest your goalie a little bit more before you go into playoffs. If you're not chasing that final playoff spot, you should be really load managing your goaltender. And then second to that, defense just needs to get a little bit more of an understanding. They've got one of the best D cores you really could ask for in the NHL. But I saw a couple problems with, which really surprised me, is with Sergachev being more of an offensive defenseman and not really protecting the middle of the ice in his own zone, just being more of a transition defenseman. It cost Utah some goals. He scored points, but he'd end up even because he was giving them up on his own end. So I think that's another big part they need to address. And then the main part, and this isn't going to surprise anybody that I'm going to say this, is the power play.
Yes.
The power play was absolute garbage. It was -1. That's unacceptable. They scored one power play in the playoffs. It was horrible all year. I watched them try to do things to address it, but they never really addressed it. It got hot for a little while when they got that bump from putting Kerfoot in. But other than that, it wasn't effective. And you can't plan on going deep without really good special teams.
So when you look at all of that you mentioned, how much, I guess, how many alterations do you think happen, not only to the roster, but maybe some adjustments to the coaching staff? Do you anticipate any of that? Not necessarily by name, but just do you anticipate that there'll be a little bit of a shakeup?
I really don't anticipate there'd be much of a shakeup. There's going to be 3 or 4 players that were in the lineup last year that will be gone. And you can look at who's unrestricted next year and see what the value is in bringing them back. Really, I think there's value in bringing Ian Cole back, but I'd let Stenlin move on. We've got these young kids coming up that are just going to be so exciting to watch. So it'd be interesting to see how they do and give them a whole season to develop. And that's why you need to keep Bear. All these people, I get it. Fan base gets mad. They start screaming for the head coach's job. But that head coach is one of the best player development coaches in the NHL, and everybody knows it. And so I don't see you changing him when you got guys that are going to need development like Iginla and Boot and Baudouin. And I mean, they just got all these young kids coming up that they really need to develop. I would like to see, and the power play has to change. So does that mean you have to change the power play coach, or do you tell that power play coach, we're giving you another chance, but it can't just be this ineffective bumper power play that only works in practice and didn't, if you're among the worst in the NHL all year, then that's where you need to change. It's pretty obvious. And, you've got a coach that won the Stanley Cup running the power play in Forsyth. So it's not like he doesn't know what he's doing and he hasn't had success, but he didn't have success this year. And it's more of a, what have you done for me lately mentality, right? They're maybe not as cold-hearted as Vegas, but at some point you got to say it either the power play changes or we change you.
So when there was that moment of time near the end of the season where they caught fire on the power play, and it's like, oh, okay, they fixed it, they got it going. Was that maybe just a nice matchups? Was it just why did we get that little mirage of hope when it comes to the power play, and then all of a sudden it went away again?
The main thing I saw that when it was working was we were getting more shots from defensemen, and you had a guy like Kerfoot and you had a guy like McBain spending a lot of time up front, maybe not in the bumper position, but in the net front position. Those are 2 very similar positions, but bumper, you're facing the goal line looking for a pass from the goal line, and net front, you're looking at the defenseman and just trying to get your breezers in the goalie's face. And I think that's when Utah saw the most success on the power play is when, Kerfoot did get a few bumper scores. He did get a few goals off the bumper, which I think is like winning the, when you hit on a slot machine and you're like, oh, I'm just going to keep doing the same thing then. I'll just keep putting money into it. And it doesn't work. But for me, that's what it was. You had just some more audibles going on and guys digging in and figuring it out rather than just looking for that bumper play. And Keller is the guy that can get you that puck. But typically you need to be below the net to get the bumper play. And Keller's up more on the mid boards looking for the cross crease pass to the other forward on the mid board. So just a couple tweaks like that. We saw it work for 5 games, 8 games. I think it was 8 games. They had a goal, and everybody thought it was fixed, and then the wheels fell right off. So those little things work, and then the other teams make an adjustment. Then you have to make an adjustment too. So it's there. The talent's definitely there to have a really good power play and to score a ton of goals, and it just needs some tweaking.
As part of the acceptance phase, are you watching the games in the playoffs every night now, or did you have to give it a break?
No, I honestly,
no, am I kidding? You're a hockey head.
I thought I would give it a break. Just like I was out of town with my wife and kids, and then I'm home and it's my anniversary, and I'm like, all right, what do you want to watch tonight? We can watch whatever. And my wife's like, you're gonna watch playoffs. I already know it. So yeah, I'm watching every playoff game, and it's not as much fun without Utah in it, but it's still the NHL playoffs, and it's still the most fun you can have watching TV, I think.
One thing that's nice that you don't have to watch or pay much attention to because of the Mammoth is the draft lottery, because, the Mammoth don't have to worry about that going forward for the foreseeable future. So but in terms of the draft, just how loaded is this class upcoming?
Well, first off, thank the Lord that I don't have to worry about the draft, because my math skills after last year, and they made it more complicated this year. You know, that meme where you got all the numbers floating around your head?
Yeah.
That was me last season trying to figure out. I'm like, I think we just won the draft. I don't know. It's just so confusing. Just put a bunch of balls in and draw it out. Let's not make it so complicated. The draft is somewhat deep this year. It's not as deep as it has been in the past. There's some really good players. I don't think you're going to see like a Nolan Schaefer or anybody walk right, or like we saw in the last couple drafts. You're not going to see somebody walk right out of the draft into the NHL this year. Maybe the first 2-3 picks, but past that, I'm not that worried about Utah missing out on anything or needing to trade up for anything. But there's some, every year there's going to be some talent. I don't think there's generational talent this year. But the draft's a crazy thing when you're picking 18-year-olds that still have a lot of development to do. You can miss out, or like we've said before, we think if we redrafted right now that Logan Cooley would go number 1 overall. So you just never know what you're going to get in the draft. But there's some good 18-year-olds. I actually have a guy that I used to play with in Idaho. His kid's supposed to be in the draft this year, so I'm probably going to end up watching it. But it's not as deep. I think Utah's going to do fine picking in the middle of the pack.
Hey, sweetie, your mother showed me this Carvana thing for selling the car. I'm going to give it a try. Wish me luck. Me again. I put in the license plate. It gave me an offer. Unbelievable. Okay, I accepted the offer. They're picking it up Tuesday from the driveway. I haven't even left my chair. It's done. The car is gone. I'm holding a check. Anyway, Carvana, give it a whirl. Love ya.
So good, you'll want to leave a voicemail about it. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
Jay, what prospects should we be the most excited about? I was looking through the list the last couple of days, and certainly some intriguing, guys. Certainly Lamoureux and his size is imposing. We talked about Rabel yesterday, the fact that he's 6'6" and actually really agile. But of all the prospects, who are you the most excited about for the future of the Mammoth?
Well, for me, there's going to be a couple surprise picks that I really think have an opportunity to have an impact on the team. Obviously, when we're looking at Iginla and you're looking at Cole Beaudoin, really has a shot at making the team this upcoming season. He's a phenomenal player. He's a big body. It's kind of what Utah needed another one of, is a big power forward. So Beaudoin is one for me, and that was the Utah Hockey Club's second first-round pick that first year after Iginla. A kid named Owen Allard had a decent year in the AHL. He has a good body. There's something to his game that I just love. He's got a real high hockey IQ. But one guy, and I've mentioned him a few times. I haven't heard anybody else really bring him up. But playing with Desnoyers is a guy named Gabe Smith, who just has that chip on his shoulder nastiness that is exactly what Utah needed for the playoffs. And if you could get a guy like Gabe Smith, get him some games in the A, so he adjusts to playing with grown men, get him in the NHL, get him 20, 30 games this year, I think he's going to surprise a lot of players, because he's a late draft. I think he was like a 4th-round pick. I should know, but I think he's a 4th-round pick, and he was drafted by the Utah Hockey Club, so he's had a couple of years to get a little bit older, and he is mean. And Utah saw it last year. He had a couple fights in the preseason, and he's just had he developed into not just being a mean guy on the ice, but he developed into a high-skill guy playing with Desnoyers up in major juniors. So that's a guy that I think can really surprise a lot of people. Desnoyers is not going to surprise anybody. He's going to come in and be phenomenal. Iginla, not a surprise. He's going to come in and be phenomenal. If those guys make the roster next year, I still see him spending a lot of time in the minors. They don't want to rush any of these guys. Bill Armstrong's very smart, very patient. He's shown Utah that he is patient. He's not going to jump the gun on anything. So Utah could have, I think Tucson's going to be unbeatable next year with all these lottery picks in there. And with Rabel and net, he's going to grow and be phenomenal. But I still think he's a 2-3 year project before he's a starter in the NHL.
All right. So this is Coach and I, this is our selfish question for you. Is there how much of a priority is Yamamoto for this front office going into the offseason?
He has to be a priority.
Yes.
They paid him $775,000 this year. Do you think you got less than $1 million value out of that guy? He was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like give him 1.5 because he earned it this year, and that does not hurt your cap. You've got plenty of room to spend. He's shown all year. He's shown for the last 2 years. He will do what you ask him to do. He'll play anywhere in the lineup. He's phenomenal offensively. He really completed a lot of the lines he got put on, and even when he was just going into the corners, which you don't expect one of your smallest guys on the team to be the guy to go into the corners and come out with the puck, but that's what he was asked to do, so he did it. He played like I love what Moore said about Don Moore said he's 5'9", but he plays 9'5". He's just aggressive, and he's worth every penny they paid him this year. I think they got a huge value on him, and he earned it. I think he earned another 2 years.
Yes,
in Utah. I'd love to see him get get 1.5 times 2.
I love it. All right, so I want to get your thoughts on this situation in Toronto, because I don't know if you heard that press conference. That was as brutal of a press conference as you've ever heard, and this guy has, in fact, if you missed the show yesterday, Toronto hires their new GM. He was the former GM of Arizona, now the Utah Mammoth. He has not been a general manager since 2020. He's been under a lot of scrutiny for some other activities. And imagine sitting at the podium and you've just been hired, and the guy that hired you is being asked this question about you.
Steve Simmons, Toronto Sun, for Keith. You talk about the due diligence that you did on John prior to hiring him and now hiring him. In the past, say, 3 to 4 days, I have been in contact with about 20 people who work in the National Hockey League, many of whom are prominent names that we would all know. And of the 20 people I spoke to, one was supportive of John's hiring, and the other 19 thought it was a sham, to be perfectly honest. Words were used like con artist, liar, salesman. How did you come to a different conclusion than I was able to come to in a very short time?
I must have talked to different people.
That's it? Because I'm telling you, the hockey world today is astounded by this announcement.
Okay.
And your response to that?
Is we've conducted due diligence, and it was deep due diligence. It was a thorough process, and I'm quite happy with where we've landed.
So John Shaika is the general manager, and I don't know how much of this roster for Utah that he's been responsible for. I can't imagine much. But what's the MO on this guy? Why is he just absolutely getting thrown under the bus by Toronto and the rest of the NHL media?
There were some kind of scams he was caught up in and accused of. I don't know that anything was ever proven when he was in Arizona. They actually asked him later in the presser about that, and he avoided the question completely and just said that Arizona was a trying time and that he met a lot of great people, but he ignored the accusations. It really, I follow Spitting Chicklets too, or Spitting Chicklets, and they're not happy about this hire either. In fact, Biz tore his Maple Leafs jersey off and said he's done with the Leafs because of this. So, typically the GMs are more in the background. You don't hear a lot about them. You don't know what they're doing. And with everything else that was going on in Arizona, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a lot of just scrambling to make things work. I mean, we heard about it with Bill Armstrong, right? Bill was talking about some difficulties. He never really comes out and says what those were, but there are times where that team was on the road and they'd have to order pizza because the team wouldn't, take him to dinner or whatever. There's just some really weird things happening in Arizona, and I'm hoping that all of that was just about that, and that this guy really is okay. Like nothing really was ever proven, but yeah, for Toronto's the craziest market. Toronto and Montreal are just insane. And for a reporter to ask that question, how upset they are. And you could hear it in that reporter's voice. He's mad about the hire because these guys are so passionate about the Leafs and they need the Leafs to be good. They haven't won a cup, since World War II. They just, I don't know. These teams they have a very passionate fan base, and to be a reporter asking that kind of question with that much passion is maybe a little definitely inappropriate, right?
Yeah.
But I just don't see, I haven't heard any absolute evidence that he, had illegal recruiting, and there was some other stuff that he was, accused of, but I don't even really know what they all are. But man, yeah, Toronto,
what a mess.
Yeah, it is a mess. And I know I'm rambling a bit, but it's just, I'm trying to find the words, but he can't be as bad as that reporter thinks he's going to be. And I don't think there was anybody you could have named unless you brought in Wayne Gretzky or, Mark Messier, guys that basically get a free pass no matter what. Whoever Toronto hired, you weren't going to make everybody happy, and you were going to take heat from the media and heat from the fan base anyway. So hopefully John can go in there. And I've met him a couple times when I was at equipment rep. He seemed fine. Not that we can sense that out as equipment reps, but it makes me uncomfortable. Even sitting in our press conferences with the Mammoth, sometimes I hear questions that make me uncomfortable, but that was unreal. I would be surprised if Toronto yanked his credentials.
The very definition of a pointed question.
Yeah, I'd say so.
He's pointing. I'm asking you about him. And that was the craziest part. The guy was in the room. Last question from me, Jay. Icing or not icing last night? And did the Ducks take a tough L last night? I'm trying to figure out the right way to say that.
It looked to me. It did look like Eichel got to because the icing now is at hash mark, and it looked like the Eichel was at that hash mark, and the tie is supposed to go to the to the team that's being iced on. So the tie is supposed to go to the defensive team. So I thought Eichel was a little bit ahead of him. Either way, you're taught from the time you play, like the first time there's a ref on the ice, you're told to play to the whistle and then stop. There was no whistle. Anaheim should have been more ready and not just turn the puck over. You see that all the time. But play to the whistle. I thought it was really close. And it could have been icing, but it was close enough that you should have expected it not to be called and played it both ways. Defensemen should know better. You're in the NHL. You're going to play to the whistle, even if you're down 7-1, and they're going to keep trying to score, right? So the whistles are going to be the only thing that should stop you in your play.
We'll check in throughout the playoffs, but if there is a Stanley Cup final between Colorado and Carolina, can Carolina hang with the Avalanche?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're showing that they can score a lot of goals also. I don't know that you're going to see another 15-goal game.
Yeah.
But unbelievable playoff hockey right now. You can't – and for all the Utah fans that were mad that Utah couldn't protect the lead, well, you just saw the Colorado Avalanche not protect the lead. You just saw Philly not protect the lead. You just saw Carolina not protect the lead. Playoffs are crazy. Everybody's doing crazy things. But, yeah, I think the only team that really can match up with Colorado is Carolina, and I've been saying that for like 3 months now. What I am surprised of is Carolina not playing that young, hot rookie goaltender that they had that, won so many games in a row and put them in such a great playoff position. And then they go back to their old starter. That kind of surprised me. But Carolina's got depth in net. They've got depth up front. They can score 4 or 5 a game. The Avalanche have scored 10 in a game. So those are the two teams I think are going to make it. I think that makes for a really good Stanley Cup final.
Jay, you're the best, man. Appreciate it. And look forward to catching up with you again down the line.
Absolutely.
There he is, the man himself, Jay Stevens, host of the Utah Puck Report.
Make game day yours. Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Tusk Top.
Mom, can you tell me a story?
Sure. Once upon a time, a mom needed a new car.
Was she brave?
She was tired, mostly. But she went to Carvana.com and found a great car at a great price. No secret treasure map required.
Did you have to fight a dragon?
Nope. She bought it 100% online. From her bed, actually.
Was it scary?
Honey, it was as unscary as car buying could be.
Did the car have a sunroof?
It did, actually.
Okay, good story.
Car buying you'll want to tell stories about. Buy your car today on
Carvana.
Delivery fees may apply.